Hi everyone, welcome to another Escapement Show. Got my good friend JCB. We got Abdul down below, and we're here to talk watches. And yeah, we're here to. We thought we'd discuss about a few icons and talk about iconic watches. And oh, good morning, Kevin. Good to see you.
Hey,
Nice
Kevin.
Chat.
Good
Great to see you
morning.
as always.
See you, buddy.
Yeah,
He's
we
on
thought we'd talk about a few icons, and yeah, good to see you, Mason. Good to
Hey,
see you, my
Mason.
friend. We thought we'd talk about a few icons and what could potentially be icons in the future.
Yeah, I thought it'd be an interesting topic because a lot of people talk. Hey, Nick, we hear about icons and this watch is iconic and it's an iconic watch. I thought it'd be good to, or we thought it'd be good to have a look at what's currently in the market, what are some current pieces, and think to the future and think, some of those might be iconic. They might be future icons. Be an interesting and a fun discussion. So yeah, should be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones I've had on the thumbnail, we had a few on the thumbnail. I mean, there's the Cartier Santos, came out in 1904, invented for Santos Dumont. So there's the Santos was made in 1904, but released to the public in 1911. And then there was the Cartier Tank. Cartier Tank came out in 1918, was introduced and entered production to 1919. We had the Reverso, which was 1931. First sports watch, so that's made it iconic. I mean, it's an icon. We had the Patek Calatrava in 1932. The first reference, 96, launched an iconic design that reflects minimalist Bauhaus principles. Designed by Henry Stern soon after his father was a dial manufacturer who acquired Patek in 1932. We had the Blancpain 50 Fathoms, released and issued to the French Navy divers, widely regarded as the first modern dive watch and equipped with a rotating bezel. The Submariner followed in 1954. Rolex released that at Basel World in 1954. However, the 6202 Chronograph was made in 1953, and Rolex believed this to be the birth of their iconic dive watch. There's the Datejust that came out in 1945, the first automatic watch with a date window and fluted bezel, and made that recognizable as a Rolex. We had the Cartier Tank, introduced in 1918. I may have said that already. Yeah. We had the Moonwatch, of course, the Omega Speedmaster, the Caliber 3, in 1957. The Caliber 321 was in the CK 29515, and we know that design from the 57 reissues. The 321 movement introduced in 1942 as a pilot project between a joint project between Omega and Lemania, one of Omega's subsidiaries at the time, and the 321 is recognized as the best lateral clutch column wheel controlled chronograph they used to make, and was used as a base movement by Breguet, Patek, and Vacheron in many chronographs. And yeah, so I mean, what really defines an icon, do you think? I mean, is it that it's a watch that can There's a new piece of what am I trying to say? A new
Innovation, you mean?
Innovation, that's the word I'm looking for. A new innovation, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's like a combination between a new innovation and a trendsetter. Like you have every watch you mentioned came out. Before that, people were thinking about watching in one direction, and then after that, I can do that with my watch. Like the reverso. Before the reverso, like you wouldn't wear any watch in any kind of sporting event, and then wow, I can wear that in a polo event where a heavy ball could get smashed on my wrist, and the watch will still be okay. Or let's say the 50 fathoms in the Submariner. Oh, I can take my watch diving with me and time out the dive session on the Crown. So definitely, and like the Datejust, like the first watch with the date, let's say. So I can wear this every day to my work and have every day the date on my wrist and still be able to go on the weekend to swim in the sea because it's 100 meters water resistant. So it's definitely, I think it's like a combination of both.
Yeah.
I think, and Maison mentioned the Navitimer there. That's definitely an iconic piece. I think I agree with what you guys have said. Definitely, I think for me, really, when we think about icons or when I think about iconic pieces, I think about watches that are really super popular amongst watch enthusiasts, right? But that doesn't have to be like popular with everyone. And I think the Navitimer is a really good example of that. Like it's really popular within like the aeronautics community, for example. Like it's popular in its target market, right? And then I think you need to think about, well, what makes it popular? Why is it so popular? And it comes down to the design, right? It's got to be good design. And also I think part of that is that novelty factor. It's that innovation factor. It's something new. So it's like a new design. It's a good design. And it's over time. This is the thing that makes something iconic, I think, is that given some time, it's become really popular. It's become a watch that's so, like, it's sought after. People want it. It's jumped out of the catalog and come into the consciousness of the watch enthusiasts as something that we really aspire to, as a piece that we want to get our hands on. So I think it sort of takes on this sort of really special place in the watch community. And the other thing I was thinking about just before the show, when I was thinking about these icons, is that they're still in production. Like they're still in production in one way or another. Like here's the perfect example. The Sub has, and this is this thing about design as well. Like the design of the watch was so good at the start that they've hardly changed it. You know what I mean? So it's that good design to start with. And it's just kept going. They've kept it going for 70 plus years or whatever it is, since 54, as you're saying, Thomas. That the Cartier, the Santos, the Datejust, the Navitimer, the Speedy, they're all still in production. And I think that's testament to the designs and the fact and it gives them their iconic status. So it'll be interesting to see some of the pieces that we look at, that we sort of, we're not going to look at, but I mean, I think most icons are still around. Some of the pieces we pick, are they discontinued or are they still in production? I think that'll be, an interesting thing to look at in 10, 20 years. Are they still going?
Yeah, I mean, I showed the Submariner earlier, and that was the first watch to make it to 100 meters water resistance. I mean, so there are sort of innovations, like Abdul said, that the watches do have. You know, I mean, got the Navitimer here, like you were talking about, and yeah, I mean that was one of the first watches to have this sort of like the pilot's bezel, the
slide rule bezel,
yeah, that people could measure their fuel gauge their fuel with, you know, and sort of measure how much their fuel would last for a flight, you know, which was interesting. You know, they've really interesting.
Yeah, like you said, GCB, the design is the key. And what I noticed in all these iconic watches, that the design was part of the function, you know, like this watch has the bezel and it has a function. And even though now people won't wear this Navitimer to time their, let's say, fuel consumption on a flight, but still the function stays on, the design stays on, because it's just was, like you said, awesome from the get-go. So they just made some tweaks, one model with a date, one model without a date, bigger, smaller, just to have a more, let's say, wider audience for their watches.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they can tweak it over time and, you know, refine it and so on. That's just part of the, you know, the innovation process, for sure. But, you know, that base sort of design is what grabs you and what ultimately makes the watch popular over time, I think. There's a lot of subjectivity as well, you know, and this is a perfect example. Like, not everyone likes Navitimers, and I was, you know what I mean? Like, I never liked Navitimers at the start when I was getting into watches. I was sort of scared of them. I thought they were too busy, but now I love them. I think they're unreal, and I want to get one. You know, so sort of design and iconivity. What's the word? Iconicness.
Iconic.
I think there's an element of subjectivity, of course, and I think we'll have our different views, and other people have our different views. But there seems to be certain watches that just everyone agrees will be are icons, you know. So it'll be interesting, this discussion, I think, to look at the pieces that we think will make it into that category, say in, you know, 10, 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, we'll just do a wristwatch check. You reminded us about that earlier on JCB. So I'm wearing my Panerai. This is my PAM 352. Don't know whether you can see very well.
Yeah.
What sort of strap you got it on there?
I've got it on a Stingray strap.
Nice.
Aaron Bespoke in Montreal, combat straps. So, I mean, this could be considered maybe an icon. I don't know. The Panerai.
Because I think this design, Panerai came up with it, and if you see it on somebody's wrist, you just know it's a Panerai, you know, like
exactly. It's recognizable.
It's recognizable anywhere, you know, like that's definitely, I would say, iconic piece from Panerai, even though Panerai now are not doing so well, but still, who knows, in 20 years, maybe the generations now that see their fathers, mothers wearing Panerais, they will be like, I want to wear another Panerai as well.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, I think, because what I was talking about before is like popularity of the piece, and if you compare it to, say, a Speedy or a Submariner, like those watches, they've always been popular. They've never really seemed to go out of style, whereas Panerai sort of go on these waves. They come in and then they come out. So it's an interesting one, just as a, you know, conceptually, whether we think it's an icon or not.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if it is. I'm wearing a Transocean chronograph today.
Beautiful, love it.
Beautiful.
I love that bracelet you put it on. That
really nice.
Yeah, I was watching my good friend ID guy did a video a couple of weeks back.
He's put his Seamaster 57 on an OEM Omega mesh bracelet, hasn't he? It looks gorgeous.
Looks so good. And I was
really
like,
nice,
because I have the rubber one, I thought I have to get the mesh back out, and it's great, so comfortable. But that Omega mesh is see, this one here, like, it's the Breitling mesh. It's the same manufacturer, which is a German manufacturer called Stabe. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it's quite it's polished, like it's quite a polished mesh, and it's in when you're just walking around town or whatever, it can be a bit blingy. But that Omega one, it's a lot more. It looks like it's more brushed, and it's a lot more sort of a flat surface. So it looks a lot more like a toned down type of mesh. I think they've changed it quite a bit. So yeah, really cool OEM from Omega. Well, it's Stabe OEM for Omega. Yeah, it's not really Omega. Yeah, anyway.
And Abdul, what have you got?
I have my first new watch of. Let me put my hand behind it. The lighting here is a bit shoddy.
Great, we can see that.
Yeah, it's Zodiac. It's a Polish watch. Just got it this month, so my first watch for this year. It's an enamel dial. They do this Zodiac watch, and I thought about the iconic pieces because they produced this back in the 1960s, and they got stopped season assist by Zodiac in Switzerland because they named their watch Zodiac. And after a couple of years of battling it in court, they stopped the production of the watch, and they went bankrupt, let's say 10, 20 years ago. And a guy named Michael Duen, a Polish guy, bought the company or the name for the company and brought it back to life. And they produced this enamel watch, which really cool watch. They have it in black, white, and burgundy, and it's around 600 euros. So I saw it and I was like, okay, how about starting the year with a new enamel watch? And I think this year I'm concentrating only on let's say dress-styled watches and independent watchmaking. So I'm definitely adding more enamel dials. I put my name for an Ordain, hopefully in the next month.
Beautiful! I'd love an Ordain. I saw the Ordain. I saw them at Watch Pro Salon and at World Time UK, and not World Time UK, sorry, just at Watch Pro Salon, and they took me through how they do their enameling process, and it's a gorgeous styles they do, the Fume dials that they do, and just beautiful. Mason's asking you, maybe you could give a bit of advice to Mason 1 JCB, saying should he get a 7-link Navitimer bracelet for his Navi? He's got
I was just writing something in the chat actually. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm not sure of that reference number, Mason 442A, but all of the Navi bracelets before the new one are fully polished. So that's the only thing that you need to be prepared for. But having said that, that bracelet is awesome. The Navitimer 7-link bracelet is so good. Like, it looks fantastic on a Navitimer. I love it. I love Navitimers either on a bracelet or on a strap. Doesn't matter what it is, it looks fantastic. So you should definitely do it. Look, the Breitling Navi bracelets are generally a bit on the expensive side. If you can find one used somewhere, and I'm not too sure. Yeah, it's an A23322. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, beautiful watch. Get the bracelet, man. On that watch on the bracelet is a cracker. So the cool thing that I mean, as I said before, like, it's fully polished. All Breitling bracelets generally in the Navitimer and like in the Pilot's range are polished. They're fully polished. So you just got to be prepared for that. That's the only thing. The new Navitimer bracelet, they've changed that. They've made it a little bit brushed. It's brush polished. They've tweaked it. I think, following feedback from people. But if you're cool with the full polish, then go for it. Yeah, I would do it.
Yeah. Do you know if they make their straps in Y2K?
Yeah, just want to say Y2K and happy Chinese New Year, or not Asian New Year. Yeah,
lunar. Happy Lunar New Year.
Happy Lunar New Year. Yeah. Good on you.
What's it the year of? It's like year of the pig.
The rabbit.
The rabbit. Yeah.
Rabbit. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I was just
you
going
were
to ask
saying,
you.
Abdul?
Do you know if Breitling also make their straps with some OEM manufacturer like Omega does? Because that would be a good way to buy an affordable one, right? Maybe without the logo on the bracelet, but still with the same quality and design.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they always have, really. I'm not sure who the manufacturer is. Now, this is interesting with Breitling bracelets, because Y2K always talks about the thick, heavy leather bracelets. That was the case before, George Kern took over. So they must have had a manufacturer which was making really heavy, thick leather. Since George Kern took over, they've obviously gone the cheaper route, and because if you wanted to get the OEM leather strap, the alligator straps were ridiculous, like $700 type of thing, really expensive. Now you can get them for, I don't know, maybe $200 or $300. So they've halved the price, and the quality has, I'm not sure if it's halved the quality, but it's they're a lot thinner. They're not the same quality that they used to be. But I really don't give a shit when it comes to leather straps, and I'll buy aftermarket stuff. I put all sorts of stuff on my watches. I don't really care, and in fact, I tend to do what Thomas does and gets custom. I get custom straps generally from a strap maker to suit my specifications and colors and different materials that I like these days. So I don't really go the OEM route unless it's like the rubber. I like getting the rubber strap from the manufacturer. Like I've got the Breitling rubber, I've got the Zenith rubber. I don't know, I'm a bit mental like that. I like to have the OEM rubber. When it comes to the leather, I mean, they charge you ridiculous amounts, and you can get custom straps made for a whole lot cheaper, and they're going to be to your specification, like you can.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I get this guy in Vietnam to make straps for me, and it costs like $80 US, and I get, fully custom. I tell him how thick I want them. I want them 4 mil at the watch end and taper it down to 2 mil at the buckle end. You know what I mean? I tell him all this sort of weird shit, and they do it. So I think it's there's a lot to be said for getting custom straps.
Definitely.
So should we crack on with our topics? What we did was we all, JCB and Abdul have picked 10 of their choices of what they think, what they feel are worthy icons, future icons. So we'll start with you, Abdul, and we'll bring up your first watch, which is the MB&F Legacy Machine #1. You want to tell us about this?
Yeah, I'll tell you about my mindset for choosing the watches. So I try to look at it from a perspective of a future evaluator, right? I'm looking 50 years in the future, and then looking back in time and seeing what would be the designs that would be now iconic. Let's say if I look back 50 years ago or 70 years ago, that they just all these designs that now people are taking it, that's an iconic watch. What would be these watches in the future? And I started by looking at the GPHG awards, so the Oscars of the watch, horological, let's say from a horological standpoint.
Makes sense, yeah.
And this was one of the ones that just took my eyes away because of the 2-dial design and having the balance wheel on top, which to my knowledge weren't that thing that was before. Let's say that you have 2 time with 2 different let's say mechanism, but the same balance wheel. which you can set them from 2 different crowns. And I thought that might be something that in the future people would be wearing more and more, or something that would be, let's say, like a dual time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Interesting.
Cool.
I mean, it's a gorgeous watch, and I mean, MB&F are growing and growing in stature, aren't they? And they're collaborating with Max Boost is collaborating with more and more people, and yeah, he's really put himself on the map. And I think, yeah, I think more and more independent watchmakers will become iconic watches. I think you're right. I think that there's room for more and more independent watchmakers to become recognized in the future. Like you say, in 50 years' time, I mean, a lot of the watches we looked at are 50 years or older that we talked about as icons and previously. And I think if you're looking in 50 years' time, we'll be looking back at the age of the independents, when the independents first sort of came into the watch sector. And we'll be recognizing a lot more of those as the big ones anyway, the big independent makers, the Carries, the Grubels, the MB&Fs, the people like that, and there'll definitely be, I think that people will look back and definitely recognize them as iconic. What do you think, JCB?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting watch, this one. Really interesting. Because there's just a lot going on with this watch. Obviously with the way it's set up, and that crazy MB&F bridge with and the balance going on there. But yeah, I definitely think I agree with what you just said, Thomas, where in the future will be, I think these guys, I mean, like independents will be coming a lot. They'll, MB&F and so on will be a lot more. They'll actually be a bit more mainstream, I think, in 20, 30 years. And so there's definitely scope for watches like this to move into icon status. The sort of the one of the things I'm just not sure about is whether, like, there's that thing I was saying before about how iconic pieces they're sort of still in production, whereas MB&F, like a lot, this one here, it's got a limited run. There's not there's only so many of these watches in existence.
Exactly.
I'm not sure what the production numbers on this one are, but I imagine it's very low. Maybe a couple of hundred was ever made, and I don't think that they, they're not. It's not in current production, this watch.
No, they're making the iterations, like the Machine Legacy number 2 and
number 3. Yeah, so and they
the same idea. The
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's probably my only reservation about whether it could be icon status for this.
I think you found a very good point there, JCB. Exactly. Do the watches need to be iconic? Do they need to be in current production, and do they need to have followed production since they came out?
I'm just not sure. Yeah, I think, well, that if we think about like the watches now that we know as iconic, right? They are in production still. So that's why I sort of feel like, I could be wrong, but whether that's definitive and whether that is a deciding factor of being an icon, but it just seems to be a common thread that the watch has still kept going and it's still there, and it's sort of it lends itself to like remaining in the psyche, the fact that it's still in production. It's always relevant. It's always a relevant watch. It's always in the watch enthusiast psyche, you know, the Submariner, the Speedy, it's always there because it's still in production. We still see it. It's still being sold. People are still buying it. It's still relevant. And that's sort of, I think that's a factor. I think that's something that's pretty important. I don't know.
I agree. Like the Datejust, it's if you have a Datejust from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, now it's basically the same. 36 millimeter fluted bezel, it's almost copy paste, and people still buy the new, buy it, everything. I totally agree on this point. What I try to capture from my selections mostly is like, let's say the Grail watches that would be iconic, let's say. Okay. So the watches that in the future people will be copying, because like now you would find homages of the Datejust, Submariner, Speedy from, let's say, under 100 euros to practically almost to MSRP from the watch. But I just thought, okay, if I'm thinking in the future, we are now going more individual, more like the hyper individualization era. Everybody is like you said, I make my straps, my strap maker makes my straps. So I thought maybe in the future we'd be moving towards, I want to have this iconic watch unique to me, let's say. So something in that area. But I totally agree. And when I saw your selections, I was like, perfect. We balance each other out. I have like, let's say, the hypothetical iconic watches of grails of the future, and you have the really iconic watches that we will see in 50 years that people would be wearing. My grandfather used to wear the Navitimer, or my father used to always wear his Sabi, and that's why I'm wearing also my Sabi.
Yeah, no, gotcha, Abdul. Yeah, I think on that, on with that context and that explanation, that makes total sense. And yeah, I would agree. You know, probably on a number of watches from MB&F on that criteria.
So your next choice was the Grönefeld 1941 Remontoire, Abdul.
Yes,
this watch.
I chose this watch because I think Grönefeld will be one of these watchmakers that we will remember in 50 years that were part of this independent revolution. Because let's say 10 years ago, you wouldn't hear so much about the Grönefeld brothers. And now with the Agengraph, with this Remontoire almost winning every year a GPHG award, they're practically embedded in this trifecta with FP Journe, Keri Voutilainen, like the big guys, the big independent, MB&F, Moser. And I thought this would be just the perfect watch, 50 years looking back in time to remember, wow, this watch was the watch that everybody now noticed Grönefeld and thought, okay, these are bad boys of the horology. They are really producing watches that... horologically speaking, very high level, and at the same time just so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you don't just have to look at the design of the watch, but also what's been groundbreaking things they're doing movement wise. So that can be recognized as part of the iconic status, maybe. I mean,
I love the fact that with Grönefeld, you can look at the back of a Grönefeld and you know straight away what it is. Like there's not many watches that have that have that characteristic, I think. And it's the way the finishing is done. It's the design of everything, but the finishing, you can just tell they put so much care and thought into it. And you can see where the big money is going into these watches. Like they're just mind-blowing pieces. Yeah. And the design of this one, it's such a great design. It's going to be timeless as well. It's not, it's not super out there like the MB&F. It's got enough. It's sort of soft enough for a lot of people to be popular with a lot of watch enthusiasts. That's just a great watch, this one.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the future it would be much cheaper to get a Remontoire movement with the new technologies, because this is an unattainable watch for me at the moment, but I'd love to have a Remontoire movement with the same concept.
Have they stopped taking orders? I remember about halfway through last year, right? Is that still the case? Like they're just still on hiatus?
Like we're fully booked to the next 3 years. And they even, I think the Eigengraph price is 160,000. So it's like, wow. And they're still fully booked, sold out. So it's definitely a very loved piece.
Man, they're killing it. Yeah.
So next up was one of your choices was the Octo Finissimo.
Yeah, this watch I think matches exact definition what JCB mentioned. I think this watch will be still in production in 50 years.
Yeah,
maybe
agree.
with the different formations. But Bulgari made the perfect move when they released the first Octo Finissimo watch. They went for a niche in the market, the thin sports watch, integrated bracelet, cool look. They copied, let's say, the mindset of the Royal Oak, the mindset of the Nautilus, made it in Bulgari form, and they stuck with it. And I have to pick my hat up, and because they did a great job. Every year they won a JPHG award. Every year they had a new complication to put on top, and they didn't, let's say, discontinue the first line. They just adjusted it from 50 meters water resistance to 100, from fully polished to brushed, from titanium to steel, and so on. And they added carbon. And I think this watch is exactly like you said, GCB. This watch would be in production in 50 years, maybe in smaller sizes, bigger sizes, and different variations. But this would be a watch that people will remember. Wow, this watch came in the time where independents were blowing up, and it's still there.
Hi,
Y2K.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you.
Keep going.
Yeah, I'm really I'm really on the fence with the Octo. It's because the design it's just a little bit too polarizing for me anyway. I personally, I'm not a fan of the design of the watch because it's just got a little bit too much going on for me. And that's just how I feel now. In 10 years, I might look at it and go, it's fine. Like what I did with the Navitimer, right? The Navitimer, initially I was scared of the design, and I was like, it's too much. That's sort of how I feel. And with the Navitimer, I changed. I got into it. I accepted it for what it was, and I love it now. So this one, maybe I'll have that change of heart down the track. But where I'm at the moment with the watch is it's just too. It scares me. It sort of puts me off a little bit. And I've got to say, I haven't had one on my wrist yet, so that's probably I'm probably not speaking, with any sort of authority, and giving myself the chance to speak with any real authority on whether it's good or not for me. But just based on the look of the watch, it's probably just got a bit too much going on for me. What about you, Thomas? What do you think in terms of that, the design?
I think it's a unique design to Bulgari, and I do think it's design-wise it's quite iconic. Whether it hasn't broken any, I mean, the movement is extremely thin. It's an extremely thin watch. That's one thing that goes in its favor. But yeah, I mean, it's a quite a unique watch, and I think it will stay in production, definitely.
Yeah,
and I think it could definitely be one of the watches that will. Well, yeah, it could.
Yeah, I think so too. because it's like as you're saying, that design is just so revolutionary. It's so unique. It's such a, you look at it. Hey, Nicola.
Hi, Nick. Good to see you, my friend.
Hello, Nick.
Yeah, it's like you see it, you know what it is, you know it's Bulgari, you know it's the Octo, you just know what it is like straight away, and it's quite revolutionary in terms of there's nothing really else like it, and that's a cool thing. That's one of the criteria that gives iconic pieces. That makes pieces iconic, is that there's nothing really else out there like it, or it's different enough to be its own thing. And this has got that in spades. This is the perfect example of that.
And I was exactly like you, GCB, before I tried it out. Like I was like, oh, okay, this is too big, too shiny. The models are not to my liking. I really like the GMT one with chronograph. So I have GMT and chronograph. And last year I was fly over in Istanbul for a couple of hours. So I'd go to the AD, drink a coffee, try a couple of watches, and I have to say, I loved this exact one with the blue dial. It's just perfect on my wrist. I have a 17.1 centimeter wrist, so not a big wrist, a medium-sized one. The other ones, the bigger ones, would be more to Y2K's liking. They're like big, bulky watches, 42 millimeters, and really like a puck on the wrist. They're really big, at least for me. But they were really nice. All of them. The finishing was great. The looks were great. And I was like, wow. I had this negative connotation of the watch that I thought, oh, this is just a hacky way from Bulgari just to produce it the M every year. But when I looked in the movement, looked at the feeling on the wrist, they were really nice. That's why I'm telling you, you should go try them out, because you really have a different, like the Navi Timer. I had the same thing for the Navi Timer. For a long time, I didn't like the design at all. And then I saw on one of my friend's wrist, the Navi Timer, no, not the Navi Timer, the Sin 903. So because Breitling sold the Navi Timer design back in the days. Hey, Cherry Badger. And Zin was one of the ones that recreated the design in their own branding. And I just looked at it and I was like, wow, okay, that looks really nice. That feels really nice. And then I changed my mind on it somehow.
Pull up Nick's comment there, Thomas, just a little before we move on. Is it octagonal? Is it square? If it doesn't seem to know what it is, then how can I?
Yeah, fair enough. Good point. Fair point, Nick. Yeah, fair point.
That's actually a very good thing, because Sorry, JCP, go ahead.
Your thoughts on the Octo, Y2K? I think you've spoken about the Octo before. You like it?
Yeah, but I think for Bulgari, they really need to come out, and they really have to do something about the marketing image in terms of their watches. And the Octo Finissimo, let's talk about it in a series or collection, is perhaps one that actually brought them out into the open. So I think, as Abdul has said, I did try one before. Now, it's not like an immediate purchase, like immediate requirement to be purchasing it. So for me, I would just say, if I can get it, I'll get it. It's got a very nice white, I'll use the word pizza, look like a very nice flat pizza profile. But it doesn't feel that there's no heft, there's no weight to it. So it's a lot easier to wear, flatter, but just slightly a bit bigger. But I know you know me, I love big watches anyways. Yeah.
So move on to your next pick, Abdul, the Akrivia Chronomètre Contemporain.
Yeah, and this one goes back to this first concept that I was talking about.
Yeah, back to independence. Yeah,
exactly. Watches that in 50 years we will see a lot of people copying it, just going back and saying, "Oh, this watch is inspired by a Recep Recepi Contemporain," and I think this design, this look of bringing back the 1920s, 30s watchmaking will be back again in 50 years. It will be back again in 100 years.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite watches of all time. I just think he nailed the design. It's unreal. Yeah. And with the CC number 2, He kept the basic design and he made a few tweaks. So I think it'll be one of those ones where even like sort of with the MB&F where they make iterations of it. This one is even more so where the basic design will stay the same, hopefully, and he'll just make some little tweaks to it along the way, I think. But honestly, it was just one of the most beautiful watches for me of all time. I just think he's just nailed it. It's just unreal. Yeah, I think it's got that icon potential, definitely.
Do you think Reshappi will stick with this design throughout his catalogue?
Look, I really hope so. I really hope so, and I think he will. I think he will because, you know, the reaction from the market was like everyone fuck, everyone flipped out. They were like, man, where did this come from? Like everyone, I don't think anyone has ever said that this is a bad design. I can't think of any criticism that I've read or seen or heard of about this design. Like if you just look at it, the thought that's gone into it, and it's simple but it's complex. There's so much, like it's Art Deco but it's modern. It's just like, you know, this is a watch enthusiast's like wet dream for me personally. And I'm with it. Me and Abdul, we really agree on this watch. This is just one of those pieces that from the day one design of this watch, he just nailed it. I like this one better than the second one. In fact,
me too.
I think this one is better than the second one. I hope he goes back for number 3 to just do this one again. Like make more of this watch. Get this one out there more. I just think it's a perfect dress watch, really.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I think this is one of the watches that people will have posters of them on the wall, you know, like, oh, this is my ultimate grail, let's say.
Yeah. So if you look at like something like a Calatrava, right, which is sort of in the same sort of vein as this, Calatrava it doesn't have anything really interesting going on with the watch. You just look at it and it's just like, yeah, whatever. But this one, even though it's just the same function, it's a 3-hander with small seconds. Just the fact that he's done the design like this, it just looks so interesting. It's just so like, it's just a 3-hander. It's nothing crazy, but it's just such a beautiful watch. It's so nice to look at. It's interesting, and there's all these patterns and geometry and things going on, and I just think he just did a really great job.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah, lovely watch. So we'll move on to another of Abdul's picks. Now, this brand, as a brand, I think they will definitely become iconic. But
the
Bethune, yeah. I'll just pick the one out that Abdul's gone with. He's gone with the Starry Various.
Yeah, I picked this one up like a left field choice, just because 2 things. The case construction, which is, I'm not so big fan of it, but I didn't try it on my wrist, so I cannot fully say how it will feel. I heard only good things, that you could shorten the lugs, accustom it to your wrist with De Bethune. But I think they were one of the first ones to make this starry dial, the sky dial, and now independent watchmaking is full of these aventurine dial. You have from Smith's watches, where you can buy for a couple of €100 to 100,000 for the same dial, or almost the same design of the dial. But I thought that's one of the moments when I thought, okay, maybe in 50 years people will be looking back and saying, oh, this is the base of where the aventurine dial and the skies dial and all these types of dial were made for everybody to wear. Like, oh, I want this dial, I want to have a similar dial, or a case construction that's the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think that articulated lug system is something innovative as well. I mean, it's a watch innovation, their articulated lug system, and I think that could be one thing that maybe is in their favor, definitely.
Sure, yeah.
For putting them on the map as a iconic thing. It's very unique design. I mean, I don't know whether I'd go with the Stradivarius myself, but I think De Bethune are very, 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 very unique in their designs, and as a brand will definitely go places. Yeah, and will I think they'll stick around as well, definitely, as an independent watch brand. They're being championed by Watchbox, of course.
I was just going to say,
yeah,
with all the investment, they seem to be.
Absolutely.
They're not going anywhere, are they?
No.
I sort of feel like even just the case and lug design might become iconic in the future. Like, let alone, leave the dials aside, because they've come up with this unique lug system, which is adjustable and whatnot. And you see this case and lug design, and you sort of know that that's De Bethune, especially on their more higher end pieces where it's a lot more pronounced. You know what I mean? It's a lot more in your face, if you like. So yeah, even I think just the overall look and case and lugs of the De Bethune might become iconic in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
exactly. I think the same as well.
With De Bethune, sorry, go ahead, Abdul.
No, just gonna say it would be much cheaper in the future to construct such case and lugs. That would be easier for more independent watches to reproduce.
With De Bethune, I have to say it's you call this Stradivarius. I call this. It's like the Stradivarius. It's like the violin. So I keep calling it the Stradivarius. But in terms of it, this is one watch I gotta say. Great choice of picking. I think quite some time ago I did some very mild scratching the surface of research into this piece, and the manufacturing process in terms of the dial. I think the icon for this is really the dial, and I'm not a man who likes dressy watches, but this one is definitely one to go for because of the Milky Way patterns, and is it the 24 karat gold leaf, silver tone hour? So I think for me it's really the design and the materials that's been used for this. So I would definitely go for this watch. Yeah.
I mean, I can take us back and we can just check out. I mean, this is what they're known for. Let's have a look.
I always think of the DB28. I think it is when I think of De Bethune. Yeah, this one with that. I don't know what the hell that thing is in the middle. Like, is it a bridge or what? That sort of sail-shaped triangular thing in the middle.
Yeah,
maybe it's the base plate, right? It's the base plate where all the are on top, and they made it like it's a part of the movement, a part of the cases. Part of the dial as well.
Yeah,
it looks like a Star Trek watch, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Abdul. Looks like the communicator.
This was the one I was talking about. I was thinking about the higher end model with the adjustable lugs and the case, and this whole thing. I sort of feel like this might be more of the iconic sort of piece for De Bethune, Abdul, because of that overall sort of
everything in one.
Yeah, everything in one. I feel like maybe this might be the one. That's just my view on De Bethune.
Yeah.
Captain Picard.
JCB, this watch, what it looks like, it's got like tears, and like it's if you drank like if you went for high teas, it's got tears on top.
Yeah, it's got tears. Yeah.
It creates a sense of like there's one layer and not another layer,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%. That's when I think of the Bethune, that's the immediate one that I think of is the DB28, the all blue one.
Yeah.
I just think that one stands out in my mind as the Bethune that you want to have. That's the watch, mate. You know.
That's what you think about.
Yeah.
This was an interesting choice of yours, Abdul. The Hermès Arc-Fleur de la Lune.
Yeah, I chose this one because of one reason. Hermès has been doing awesome watches for the past couple of years. They went out from being just a brand that known for handbags and women's accessories and men's accessories as well, of course, to now a respectable horological manufacturer of watches. And it was proven by GPHG, even 2022, they won 2 awards with the same watch almost. So the same watch won 2 awards. And I just chose this one, but you can choose any one of these dual complication where you have either the moon phase, which is this one, or the world timer, whichever one of your choosing. I just thought about this case construction where you have somehow hidden lugs on one side, visible lugs on the other side, 2 complications of a watch. So you have here the time, moon phase, and the date. You have on another watch the world timer. Maybe next year they will have like a switching dials of chronograph. Who knows? But I think this design will stay with them for a long time.
Hi JP, just good to see you. Yeah,
Hello,
it's an interesting design, isn't it? They've done it as a world timer, haven't they? And it's a very interesting design. Yeah, it's a GMT and all sorts, but yeah, it's a
design. Definitely, it's got the potential to be iconic, but there's something just at the moment. I just don't think the brand Hermès can sort of go into that iconic category, and it's purely just based on the brand name, really. Like nothing, you know what I mean? Like, and that's a total cop out thing. But I think for iconic status, you have to like brand is part of it too. But I liked what you said there, Abdul, about Hermès actually becoming a watch manufacturer now, and in the future 10, 20, 30 years from now, maybe their brand, their brand cachet will be, they'll have value in that brand as a watchmaker in the future. But I just feel like now they just don't have that, unfortunately.
Well, they have the H08, didn't they? And that was quite an interesting one. That was sort of square watch that they did.
The field watch.
Yeah, the field watch. And that was a really interesting one, which caught a lot of people's attention. And
well, Hermès and Montblanc, they've got serious watch manufacturing capability behind them. Just threw Montblanc in there because that's another example of a brand that is known for making pens, right? And here the analogy is handbags, but they've stepped into the watch game seriously, right? Having manufacturers of their own and so on. I just feel like they just haven't got to that brand recognition yet at this stage. But in the future, they probably will.
Yeah. So that was Hermès. Interesting.
Thomas, can I just say you're amazing at pronunciation? I would have butchered that name,
I butchered it, I think. I don't think it was very well pronounced. But here's a watch that I think is a definite icon. I think this was an excellent choice, Abdul. The Grand Seiko Snowflake. I think this one will be in production in many years to come. And I think it was a great choice by Abdul.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, when I saw this watch when it first came out, I immediately thought, okay, now Grand Seiko is there. Now I can buy a Grand Seiko without feeling I'm buying just an expensive Seiko watch that just has the Seiko branding, because of this dial, the Zaratsu polishing. It's just felt like, okay, this is a watch that in 50 years Grand Seiko will be remembered with, that it started this line of awesome dials that like the Birch dial, the Skyflake, all these dials just stem from this one watch design of a sports watch for every day, 100 meters water resistance, screw down crown. You can put a spring drive, you can put another the high beat movement, whichever you would like. And I think this is a combination of Grand Seiko that made it popular again, let's say. And I think this will stay with it for a long time as well.
Yeah, Mason says the Snowflake has become Grand Seiko's signature piece, which is the first step towards becoming an icon. I think that's correct. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, agree.
Just to share with everyone, someone once asked me how would I compare a Grand Seiko to a Seiko. If I were to put it in very simple context, in the automobile context, think of a Toyota. So if you buy a Toyota, it'd be like a Seiko.
I knew you were going to compare car. You're going to do a car analogy.
And then if you buy a Grand Seiko, it would be like buying a Lexus. Now, obviously, I'm still, and Lexus and Toyota are still in the same family. Let's not forget, you know. So, but Grand Seiko also realized that aside from selling affordable pieces, they need to go one up. And it's sometimes not very fair that I've never owned a Grand Seiko Snowflake, but when I've looked at the pieces, I actually do quite like the way they're designed. And the spring drive that I've been hearing has been giving a lot of good feedback and comments. It's very reliable. It's still, it actually even matches up to some of the more popular movements in Swiss timepieces as well.
The thing that jumps out at me whenever I handle Grand Seikos is the quality. Like the quality is there. You just feel it, like in the watch when you're just handling it. You put it on the wrist. The quality is there in spades. Like they're a quality watch. You can see what you're paying for with that watch. That the designs might not be to and the thickness of some of the watches might not be to everyone's taste, but definitely the thing that I get when I handle the Grand Seiko is the quality. Definitely, it's like chalk and cheese between a Seiko and a Grand Seiko.
Definitely.
I like that Chili Badger's comment. Y2K, he says instead of doing it by cars, do it by bicycles. The Rally Chopper.
No.
Rally Chopper. The signature bike.
Bicycles, do bikes. At least tell me like a Ducati and
motorbike.
Ducati and like what's the other bike? I can't remember. An Aprilia or something, or Ducati and Aprilia or something. Yes, I can do. Bicycles, no go, Chili Badger. I'm totally clueless about bicycles. The only bicycles I know is like BMX.
You must know the chopper. You must know the chopper.
A chopper, yes. But the chopper, you mean those kind of ones that they ride in the States?
The old 1970s.
That is like that, and I find it very funny when people had to like write like this. But if you say a Harley, it would have been like, oh yeah, Harley. It's a feel of the signature. It's kind of a look in signature. But a chopper is, the film Chopper. They actually like make those bikes.
Get to the chopper.
So they're all like that. So I don't know how you want to ride like down a highway, I-95, and for those who live in the US, like this for like hours on end. It's just not fun. I mean, I would just get a regular, like a Harley, if it's a bike. Sorry, off topic there.
I've always wondered how long you could actually ride for like that.
Yeah.
Before you have to have a break, before your arms start going numb.
Your arms would be hurting. I think you could do like this for a while because it's a bike that's for looks. So when people turn and drive it, that's a chopper kind of bike. And it's the same as certain cars that people drive, and it's like for looks, like a Pagani Zonda. It's a very signature look.
I love
Koenigsegg, Pagani. Yeah, those are all very iconic vehicles that people see as like always iconic. Yeah, so but bikes. Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, we're going on a tangent here.
I like a Y2K tangent.
I'll just bring it back. This was an interesting choice, I thought, Abdul. The Piaget Altiplano Automatic. Yeah, tell us about this one.
I chose this one as well for one reason, because Piaget started this trend, let's say, about thin watches, and I think the first concept was like as thick as a €2 coin, which is just crazy, like really, really thin. And this one was their like answer of Bulgari's thinness. They're like, hey, we can make a thinner automatic watch. And I just thought this would be something that in the future people will be also still arguing about, which is the thinnest watch, which is the thinnest automatic watch, and it will be just somehow copied in the future. And I think being copied is somehow making you an iconic watch. Like you can see all the designs, cues being copied, all the mechanism. And I just thought of this as a piece that in the future people were like, oh yeah, you remember this? This was the thinnest watch. Look, now the thinnest watch is as thin as this paper or whatever technology we will have in the future. But that was my mindset.
I mean, we've got the Richard Bean Ferrari, which is 1.8 million, but that we will discount that. We'll get that out of the way and ignore that. But yeah, I think the Altiplano, you got a good point. It was the world's thinnest watch, wasn't it, before the Ferrari came out? And
I think it was the Concept S or something. Altiplano Concept, I think it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the production piece where you have the peripheral rotor, the automatic peripheral rotor. So
this one's not as thin as the Concept. Which the Concept was ridiculous. It was
ridiculous,
2 millimeters thin.
2 mil or something.
Yeah,
that's crazy. 2 millimeters. I think I'm afraid to wear such a watch because I think it will bend on my wrist.
So what's this one? What's this one about thinness? Probably like 4 or 5 or something.
I think 2 point something, if I remember correctly. It's still pretty thin, but not as thin as the Concept.
I agree. I think this has got Icon written all over it. Actually, yeah, for sure.
Because you have this idea of putting parts of the movement, integrating it with the dial, because this is just one plane. You have to think about it that everything is on one flat plane. So they had to find innovative ways to integrate the movement, the base plate, and the dial together so that they save up thickness of the watch.
Fucking cool, man. Definitely. I like it.
Right, so we'll take away the Altiplano and the next one, which has been bounded about as a copycat of a certain Rolex. I mean, we forgot to say that we were not including Rolex in this stream because most Rolexes turn out to be icons because
definitely
they're in full production and they they're in such demand that they just become iconic status anyway. So we discounted Rolex out of the equation. So I'll carry on. But this one was bounded about that it was copying a certain Rolex, and this is the Zenith Chronomaster Sport. I love this watch.
Me too.
Yeah.
And for everybody that's saying they're copying the Daytona design and everything, but they forget that Daytona used to have Zenith movement inside.
Absolutely.
So basically, Zenith is just doing what they think is best for their company, is using a good design, excellent configuration of the chronograph with their usual El Primero movement. So it's just a way to get this design without the hassle of buying multiple watches with the AD, waiting for 10 years to get your Daytona, or just paying double price for it. I love the Daytona, but I will never pay over the counter for it, because why should I? There are other watches in the hobby that would give me the same emotional feeling like this one, with fraction of the price.
Yeah, good choice. I like this one because I was myself thinking about Zenith. Do they have any icons? What have they got currently? And I was scratching my head. But I think this one, out of the current crop of Zenith watches, definitely has sort of the icon potential when you think of design. It's a great watch. It looks beautiful. It's sort of safe enough to be popular with a lot of people. It's just cool piece. And if you look back at the Zenith back catalog, this watch, sure, it looks similar to a Daytona, but it's actually an amalgamation of a lot of different watches in the Zenith back catalog. The Rainbow, the DeLuca. You can pick lots of bits of Zenith design DNA from various parts of the Zenith catalog, and you can see where it's come from. So,
exactly.
I understand the Daytona criticisms, but they're sort of really superficial criticisms when you look at the depth of what Zenith has done with the design and linking it back to their history.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you got to consider the movement as well. That's a innovative movement in this. We've got
definitely
the second hand that sweeps around at something like 1/10 of a second, is it?
Yeah, 1/10 of a second chronograph here. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that in itself is innovative. It's the next generation El Primero, basically. The El Primero was virtually unchanged since 1969 until, there's been a few different versions of the El Primero, but like flyback chronographs and that sort of stuff. But when this one came out with the 1/10 of a second chrono, I think there was one before this actually, which had a 1/10 of a second.
Yeah.
But which this one is sort of a homage to actually. But it's this one's got hacking seconds as well. So they've taken the movement and done quite a few things to it.
Yeah, Chile's calling it the Daytona. Good to see you, Orange Hand, as always.
Orange.
Great to see
Hey,
you.
Orange Hand.
Hey, brother.
Actually, guys, I gotta tell you that if someone was to really put a Daytona, and then they offered me a Zenith, because I would tell the truth, actually, I do vote for the underdog, because I tend to go for the underdog a lot more. And with this Zenith, right, this particular Zenith, actually, there's another one, this model, but it's called this. I call it the rose gold version, where it has the same look, and it's got like a rose gold look, and they still call it sport. And the one thing I always like about this Zenith, right, was the way that the inner subdials was nice. The color placement was nicely done. It has that feel of like you're in space kind of feel, And that is something I personally feel that a Daytona doesn't really have the same effect as Zenith, on top of it. But when people do compare like Daytona and Zenith, and they say, oh, this is trying to be like that, it's not comparing like with like. It's very, very different. If you do strip down, from the history of Zenith, and then you look at the way the design aesthetics, the features, the way that they put the colors, even the placement of colors, the subdials and all this, plays a very, very big factor towards the timepiece. And I would get this color, and I'll get the rose gold one personally. I like the way the subdials are. I would get.
You like a bit of bling, don't you, Y2K?
You're only young ones, Thomas.
Yeah, true.
You must stretch.
True that.
You see, I'm a man of my words. I said that when I bought my Tudor Royale, right? So the Tudor Royale, that there's a champagne dial one, and there's a silver one with like a bit of champagne in it.
the price for both of them were exactly the same, 4,760 Singapore dollars. Now, obviously, people will say like, "Oh, if you chose the full champagne one, you look very dated, very old." And I'm like, yeah, but I think it's cool to look, gold to be flashier once in a while. So if you feel that the price is right, and you put it on, you go to the mirror and you see it, and you're like liking it, then go for it. Don't stop.
Agree.
Yeah, so we'll go back to MB&F, and this was another choice of yours, Abdul, the Mad Red One.
I chose this because I thought this would be the watch that made MB&F accessible for a lot of people. Of course, we could argue that the waiting list and people, buyers of MB&F and so on, but still the price point was so readily in the affordable price range, let's say, like just comparably speaking, right? Hey, Bofaris. That people could actually buy an MB&F instead of having, let's say, an Explorer one, an older Explorer one, even an vintage Datejust, 3,000, 4,000 euros. You could get this watch, hypothetically speaking, if it was readily available. But I think in the future, independent watch companies could be able to do such releases because of this one, because MB&F name was never better than before. People thought they will be diluting their value, diluting their brand, but actually they made it more approachable, that people thought, okay, it's not only a great watch, it's a watch that I could actually acquire.
Yeah, it's this very interesting way of telling the time as well. It's quite a unique designer factor. I mean, it's not groundbreaking movement. They've used a Miyota movement in it, and but it's. I think you're right. It's a way that people could get hold of an MB&F and enjoy one. What do you think, JTB? What's your outlook on this one?
Well, I mean, based on sort of my criteria of what an icon is, that this sort of doesn't fit the bill for me because. For a few reasons, like the design is, it's so out there that it's, like it is what it is, right? And also it's, it's limited production. You can't really buy it. You need to be a friend of the brand, and you know what I mean. Like it's sort of hard to get. Like it doesn't fit my criteria of what an icon is, but I can see what Abdul is saying in terms of his criteria for in the future. I can appreciate all that stuff, but in terms of icon status, I don't. It doesn't really fit the bill for me.
Right. So, Abdul's argued his cases, and this doesn't fit the bill. So we'll move on to your choices, JTB.
Yeah. No worries.
Let's get cracking.
I'm looking forward to getting fisted now with my.
I think you've got some great choices.
Yeah. I saw the choices. And I was like, okay, I cannot argue. I cannot argue with any of these.
Let's have a look. Let's start the Zeitwerk. Now, we can't argue with this. I mean, the first digital display that Lange did, just look at it. Yeah.
You have my vote, JCB. Hands down, this is like, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know what? Actually, when I was thinking of current pieces that are going to be icons in the future, automatically the first two watches that popped into my head were Lange's. Okay, one was the Zeitwerk, and the other one we'll get to in a minute. But I think that sort of said, I don't know why that was something about some Lange design language. With this one, the Lange one, with the Zeitwerk, I think the first generation white gold, the white metal with the black dial, to me that's the icon, the Zeitwerk. Here in the current generation, they've flipped it around, so they've got the white. It's actually platinum now with the silver dial, and they've got the rose gold or the honey gold with the black dial. When I think of the Zeitwerk as an icon, I'm really thinking of that first generation piece. The white gold with the black dial. It's a revolutionary piece. You guys know what the Zeitwerk is. Everyone knows what it is. I just think we could see that it's going to be. I think it'll stay in production. It's because it's almost already taken on iconic status. I think based on your guys' reactions to the piece and general, most watch enthusiasts sort of like, if you say what's in your top 10 watches, there's a Zeitwerk in there somewhere. So I just think this design, it was just revolutionary, based on a fucking clock in some train station or something.
No, it was a clock in a theatre in Dresden.
The theatre, okay, Dresden. Yeah. But they've put it the way they've done it, like it's just the coolest. It's in the top 1 or 2 coolest watches ever made for me. So that's just immediate. I sort of feel like it's 3/4 of the way to being an icon already, like presently, let alone in 10 years time. It's pretty much there already.
Opera house,
an opera house, Chili says,
Yeah, I totally agree with you, GCB. This is my #1 Grail watch, and exactly the same configuration that you discussed before, the white gold black dial. The first release that they did, this was when I saw this one, I was like, okay, I need to save up to get this watch, and then and until now, the past 10 years, it's not working. but
the fucked up thing is they keep going up in price, man.
Yeah,
if you look at the second,
it's crazy.
These were when I first
50K, and then now it's
like 100K or something, man. Yeah. I think they're just so popular. The popularity.
You're right, JCB and Abdul, because in the past, I think I could say like about a year and a half, 2 years ago, there's been I would call it a big spring of interest towards Lange and Söhne Zeitwerk pieces. Even I think producer Michael even showed that he actually got one of these. And he was like really diehard looking for it for like 3 to 4 years before he was considering, and finally he took the plunge and bought it. This is really one of the pieces that if you're like a dress watch and you like German timepieces in the Lange and Söhne line, this is a must-have. Yeah.
Now, Orange Hand's saying, did we mention the moon swatch? Now, I was going to mention the moon swatch in a later show, maybe, but I think that it could actually... the swatch is already iconic, I think.
Swatches.
And I think that the moon swatch, because of the uproids it's caused, because of the effect it's had on sales of the Speedmaster, because of the popularity it's had, because of the it's the phenomenon it's had. I think that it could actually become an icon. It will stay in the catalogue, I think, for quite a while, and I think it could actually become a bit of an icon. Much as I'll get a lot of hate for that from some people who Speedmaster owners who hate the moon swatch, but I think it's got feet to stand on. Yeah, but that's a whole other discussion, really. I mean, what do you think, JCB?
Yeah, really interesting one. Orange. I never really thought about it. I guess because it's a relatively new release, but based on I'm just thinking about my criteria for what makes an icon, and you probably didn't miss that at the start. It's around design. It's got to have a good design. It's got to have something innovative, something a bit different in the design, and then it's got to be popular. If you've got 1 and 2, those design pieces, normally 3, i.e. popularity, will follow. And I think definitely, obviously, the Moon's watch has got popularity in spades. So sort of putting it that way, then for sure, it probably would tick all the boxes. And the fact that you can't get them, they're always sold out, is sort of proof of that popularity, I suppose. So yeah.
So back to the Zeitwerk, Nicholas saying it's beautiful, but I just don't even look at them as watches. It's just unobtainable for me. Me too, Nick. Even if I won the lottery, I could never justify the price. And Chile saying, once you see the fat boy in a t-shirt, you can't unsee it in the Zeitwerk.
In a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I see like maybe a bit of a fat owl, like an owl trying to lift off, but it just can't because it's got a fat gut holding it down or something.
So on to JCB's next picks, and we know you're a chronograph guy, JCB, and
yep.
We're gonna start with some chronographs.
Cool.
So we've got the Patek 5270 chronograph perpetual calendar here.
Yeah, the 5270. So this is the sort of the current model.
I mean, the 5270, the 2499 was the one won by John Lennon and also Eric Clapton, but that had a different style round pump pushers.
Yeah, look, it's sort of cheating. This watch is sort of cheating because I feel like the 5270 is, based on the, all of the watches that came before it. Probably not the 5970, but definitely the 3970 and the 2499. It's got all that DNA in it, so it's sort of cheap. Like, they're all icons, but I sort of felt like out of the current Pateks, right, out of the current production Pateks, you've already got a couple of icons in the Nautilus and potentially the Aquanaut, right? I mean, the Nautilus is definitely already an icon, right? You can't argue with that. I'm thinking about, okay, in the future, what would be current? In the future, what's going to be a future icon? And I think this one sort of seems like it ticks all the boxes for me. It's got, it's got that sort of, that's design, that sort of popular, that could be, it's sort of a universally loved design. It's Patek Grand Complication. You can't really sort of mess with that. This is high on the grail list for a lot of people. But in terms of design, you look at that design. It's classic Patek. It's iconic. It's got that DNA of the lineage of the perpetual calendars. So I sort of felt like this is out of current production Patek. This is probably going to be the icon, the iconic piece. But based on my other criteria, which I was talking about before, which is about current production, I'm not sure whether this fits in because perpetual calendars from Patek, they sort of change sort of every decade or every model. There's a little bit of a tweak. And that was particularly when we saw the change from the 3970 to the 5970. That was sort of, the 5970 was a bit of a blip in the history because that was Thierry Stern's sort of first watch. That was his first perpetual calendar that he was tasked with designing when he took over the company. So he deliberately tried to make it a bit different. And so here with the 5270, I feel like they sort of went back into their back catalogue and went a bit more traditional. Looking back to the 3970 and the 2499 sort of look. So yeah, so it sort of brought that iconic feel back into the line, I think. But yeah.
Hi JJ, good to see you.
Hey JJ.
Yeah, hey JJ.
Bit of a cop out, bit of an easy pick. This one, I think.
Yeah, Orange Hand again chipping in. The 5212, I love it. Orange Hand, absolutely love it. Recent release. Yeah, could well be an icon. I don't know how long they'll keep it in the range. Yeah, popular as I won't swear on the show, but popular as F. It's a gorgeous watch in stainless steel. About £30,000, I think they're going for now. Secondary, but yeah, that calendar is the way they do that with the pointers is just stunning. It's like a sort of sector dial style, not quite sector dial, but yeah, I think you know the one I'm talking about, the 5212, don't you?
Yeah, I think this watch is just iconic because of one thing. It's the perfect everything watch. You know, like you have the chronograph, you have a perpetual calendar, you have a moon phase, and you have this case design which is timeless. And I really love that Patek does these watches that when you have them or when you wear them, you can have everything. You feel like you have everything on your wrist that you will need. And they always market their watches as the watches for the next generation. And I think this one is like the next generation watch. You buy this watch that your grandkids would wear it, and they're like, oh, look, my grandpa used to have this Patek, used to wear it on special occasions. And it's just an amazing piece.
Yeah, and Chili says the F91W is already an icon. Yeah, we discussed previous icons or current icons, and it's definitely an icon. Yeah, we all had one as a kid. You're right there, Chili. So we'll move on to the next choice of JCBs. And I'll just try and pull this up. Another chronograph, not surprisingly. The Patek 5170.
Well, it's actually, so this is out of production now. So it would be the 5370, which is the current production. But I sort of had 5170, 5370 put together because they're very simple.
I'll bring it. Do you want me to bring up the 5370 instead?
Yeah, bring up the 50 because that's actually current production. Well, let's have a look at this. I think this one is not in current production, but it's really, when you think of now just Patek chronographs as like by themselves, not with any other function. This is for me where it starts to get interesting because they brought the Breguet numerals back. Breguet numerals were big with Patek in the past, like they had them in the 40s, and there was that. What was that reference you pulled up a couple of weeks ago, Abdul? When I had that picture of the watch, I think it was the. I can't remember the reference anyway. When they brought back the Breguet numerals onto the 5170, it just. I mean, look at that watch. It's just, it's you can't mess with that design. Look at it. It's pretty much perfect, perfect sort of chronograph. I think. Just this size is perfect. It's not thin. Just you're a chronograph guy. Sort of, 5170 is high on your list as a Grail piece, and this one, I think the design. They just nailed it. It's just it's just a stunning watch, and I would give my left nut to have one of those. The 5370 is the next. Yeah, now that's the next generation. They're just unobtainable. They're just so expensive. But you can see it's the next. Yeah. This is the split seconds version. Okay, so the 5170 was just we'll call it a regular chronograph, but here we have the Rattrapant, so they've stepped it up and they've kept the same design DNA, the same design language, but the movement is like that next level up. This is the split second chronograph. I think given its design history and where it's at, I sort of feel like this will be. This is sort of, to me anyway, it's already sort of halfway to being an icon.
Yeah, I love the blue dial so much. This one looks so nice. When I see these kinds of chronograph releases from Patek, the dual subdials, I feel like these are the perfect gentleman's chronograph. Like these are the chronographs that a CEO wears in the boardroom, a vice president of a company wears to dinner. It feels like this watch is like somehow very elevated, like gives you like this importance feeling.
Yeah, and the monopusher system as well, and on the crown, it seems to be. I presume that's for the split second function.
That's for the retropant. Yeah, that's the retropant function. Yeah.
And the contrasting in the colors and design. JCB, could you just fill me in if this one that we're looking at is currently still in production?
Sorry?
Is this still in production or not?
It is, yeah.
On the
very low production numbers on this
watch.
So
I can tell that from this one, the one that we saw earlier was definitely more like I shouldn't use the word grandfather, but it's more like in a way, like almost like the genesis to that led on.
Well, it's the previous generation. Yeah, that was the previous generation. Yeah, so they've taken this is the current generation. So we're looking at the 5370p. So it's a platinum watch. They only make it in platinum now, and it's got a grand foil enamel dial. So these dials are very, very hard to make. Apparently, they break a lot of them in production. So it's Abdul could probably tell us all about enamel. He probably knows more about this watch than me, actually, because he's a big fan of enamel. But in the Patek catalog, in the grand complication sort of Patek, this isn't very complicated. Okay, it's not like a celestial watch. It's not a perpetual calendar. But even in Patek circles, this watch is like fucking high up at the top of the tree, because of the fact that it's a split-second chronograph. It's got the grand foil enamel dial, and it's a platinum piece, so it sits right up there, sort of at the top on the Patek tree, as far as I know. Yeah. Beautiful. So it's a super special watch.
Yeah. So from 3 Pateks to another Patek, which this one is a definite icon, and no denying it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you guys think of this one? Like, this is not my favorite watch, but I feel like it's become
I love it. I prefer it to the Nautilus much more. Yeah. I much prefer it to the Nautilus.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. Yeah.
Take care, JP. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, JP. Abdul, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I agree with Tom. I'm a big fan of this one, just because of this rubber strap that goes with the dial, and because they were the ones that made rubber cool again. Like they were the ones that told you, hey, you could wear actually a pretty damn nice watch on a rubber strap and not feel ashamed about it that you're wearing a rubber strap.
Yeah. I think for Patek Philippe fans and collectors, right? This is almost should I put the word? This is almost like how some people would compare having like the staple and the signature timepiece, because for Patek Philippe fans everywhere, the banners, the posters, you would definitely be spotting the Aquanaut somewhere somehow. This I would say I've actually seen this a number of times. It's quite all right with me. I feel that it's a little bit small, but I think as if you're a PP fan, then the sky is the limit. Yeah.
I mean, I as I say, I much prefer it to the Nautilus. I think it's definitely going to stay in production. They've brought out white gold versions of it. They've mixed up different versions of it with different dials. We've had the Grenade. We've had which was the khaki green version, which is unobtainable. Can't find them like rare as teeth. We've got the blue, white gold dial, white gold, blue dial.
Old one with blue. Oh, that's so nice.
We've got the. I mean, there's a few other iterations, and
it's sort of almost getting to icon status already, isn't it? Really?
I think so. Yeah. I think their 3800 reference was the first one, if I'm not mistaken, right? That just blew off, and it was like 35 to 37, something like that. And you had like quartz or automatic, and I think from that stage it just went up, and in the past 5 years it's just exponentially the stocks went up for this watch.
Yeah, Orange Hand saying the Aquanaut is definitely an icon for watch people. For the masses, not sure. I bet most people wouldn't know what it was. Yeah, good point, Orange Hand.
And actually, that's not a bad thing, right? Because if you're wearing a Nautilus on a rubber strap, or you're wearing a Submariner on the metal bracelet, the possibility or the probability of getting robbed with a Submariner is much higher.
Yeah. True.
Unless you're being spotted by me, because I look at everybody's wrists, and I have spotted senior citizens wearing this, but being in Asia, there is this problem where you think about, is that because there are a few watches that have generated homages that look like these. So the problem is, because of where the placement of the Patek Philippe word is, I tend to have to be like, try and peep, is it Patek, you know? I do like the watch. I'm not interested in stealing it. I just want to know, what it is, because it has a very distinctive look,
Excuse me, I'm not some creepy motherfucker, okay?
I'm liking your watch.
Yes.
I come in peace, So
we move back to independence, and this is another well-known one that we know.
Yeah, the Chronometre.
Yeah, we move to FP Journe and the Chronometre Bleu.
Yeah. I think this one's still in production. I think they'll probably, this is sort of seems to be like Journe's, like their base model sort of thing. So it seems like they'll probably just keep it going in production. It's so popular that why would they not? Why would they discontinue it, right? And that's the thing. It's so popular for a reason. I mean, it's just a stunning watch. The design is unreal. The dial is unreal. It's a Journe. So I feel like this is, I feel like this one will be. I was thinking about brands. Like first, I was like, what are the brands that'll be, iconic? What are popular brands? And I was like, Journe. What Journe watches will be iconic? And I feel like this is probably the most iconic, or not the most, but one of them anyway. The blue one from Journe. I think it will get there to that status.
Yeah, I mean it is highly sought after merely because it's the entry level watch for Journe, and tantalum case. And beautiful blue dial. Is it enamel dial?
I don't think it's enamel.
I don't think so. I think it's maybe a lacquer dial.
I would have to look into it more, but I'm just going from memory.
Yeah,
it's a really complicated process to make this dial. It's not enamel. It's got heaps of layers of blue. It's got I believe it's a brass base actually. With I could be wrong. I'm just going by memory, but it's not enamel.
Again, like Orange Hand pointed out, it could be an icon just for watch people, and not a general recognized watch.
I was thinking about that. With icons though, right? Like take a Speedy for example. Like, do regular folk really know like what a Speedy is?
No, I mean a lot of people wouldn't know. You're right.
I think they would say it's just an Omega or something. Is that an Omega?
Yeah, I mean people know the name Rolex, don't they? I mean, if you're wearing a Rolex, people will look at the watch and they'll see the name Rolex written on it, and they'll say, "Oh, you're wearing a Rolex," but they won't necessarily know the model. They won't necessarily say that's a Submariner, or that's a Datejust, or that's a Daytona, but they'll say that's a Rolex. You know, so they know the name because it's a luxury brand which is recognized, and it's like saying, "Oh, is that a Hermès bag? Is that a Mont Blanc pen? Is that a Cartier? I don't know. You know, is that a Cartier
wallet or
bag?
something?
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's
I was thinking icons, it's really, we sort of got to limit it to like what are icons within the watch community. I think.
Yeah.
Like what the watch guys, general watch guys, and not talking about us super geeks, but just sort of your general punters, like general watch punters, I reckon. Like what's iconic to them, because probably maybe the only exception I can think of might be a Submariner or a Datejust, where your general population would sort of know what a Datejust is, or or a Submariner maybe, but no one would know what the hell a Navitimer is, or you know what I mean, or even Speedy, I reckon. So
or reverse.
Yeah. So I feel like
the Finissimo.
Icons amongst the, like watch dudes.
Because because you need to have, I think for watch enthusiasts, you need a certain level of understanding and to read up about the history and the background of the story. If you mentioned the moon watch and all those things, so obviously the moon watch has like history to like the Apollo missions and everything. But as you are saying, the new generation maybe also be working on the hype. Suddenly the moon's watch been thrown into this whole situation, which pushes out the whole story of it, and then people in a rush to get something that's a tasteful luxury brand. When they buy that, they can say, "Oh, this is to me a luxury brand already." But the thing I would say lacking is the lack of understanding the significance of the heritage of the watch itself, from where it came from.
I think of it like this: like you have like 4 different types of people. You have people who look at a Rolex watch and they're like, "Oh, that's a Rolex, right?" And you're like, "Yeah, that's a Rolex." Or you have people who's like, "Is that a Datejust?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's a Datejust." Or like people who's like, "Is that a 5513 Submariner?" That's really cool. And then you have like the level of geekness who's like, "Oh, is that a 5513 1998 Submariner with the red sub? Wow, that's really cool." And you have these levels. Exactly.
Serial, 4 million serial, man. Oh, I fucking love it. It's awesome.
Exactly.
Thomas and JCB, that's why you get the Plov, because the Plov is just one of a kind. You can't go wrong.
That's it.
So this was another of your picks, JCB, the FP Journe Resonance.
Yeah, the Resonance. Again, like I was thinking about Journe for some reason. I don't know why. And I was thinking about iconic pieces from Journe, and this is the other one I think. Besides the Chronometre. This one, Journe came up with this whole movement, the Resonance movement. It's the innovation. They came up with this one. It's just, when you look at this, it's Journe. It's sort of possibly in the same category as the LM1 that Abdul was talking about, where it's maybe a bit polarizing to be in the icon sort of status, but when this one sort of felt like it fit for me because of the innovation and the fact that this is what Journe is known for. The Resonance, sort of everyone knows that you just look at this thing and it's Journe, and when you think of Journe, to me anyway, this is what I think of. I think of the Resonance complication. So yeah, this is probably a bit of a, a bit of a grey, maybe a 50-50 sort of line call one, whether it would be iconic, but maybe in 20 years it could get there. I don't know.
I could
What do you guys
argue actually it's starting to be iconic. From one thing, people who are starting copying it. Armin & Strong makes now a resonance watch. Before we had this resonance from FP Journe, we never heard about resonance watches. It was just a concept back in time that you could do that with a mechanical movement, maybe some clocks. But on a wristwatch, FP Journe, I think, was the first ones to come out with it, and we're seeing now other independent watchmakers that are doing the same thing. So I would argue that makes you iconic as a watch if other watchmakers are copying you just to make the same complication.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Thomas and Y2K, about this one? It's a bit of a I don't know. You could go either way with this one.
I may be a bit funny because it feels like a Rattrapante, or am I using the word wrongly? Yeah.
No, it's the dual time, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Sorry, is it the what?
It's a dual time.
Dual time.
Dual time. Dual two times.
The movement.
It's got a very Rattrapante feel to it, but that's my. That's just my
work are linked through harmonics. This concept of resonance, which is when you have one movement working at a certain frequency, the other one will pick that up, and the two movements will be working in perfect harmony in terms of the timekeeping. That's the basic theory underlying this watch, and it works apparently. So yeah.
Thomas, could I trouble you to just click the next slide for the picture? I want to see the other profile from it. Yeah.
They're all the same, I'm afraid.
No, the one to your right. Yeah. Next one.
Yeah, maybe the movement. The whole idea of the resonance is that you have the two balance wheels, right? And the two balance wheels are moving in different orientations. And the resonance effect is that once two pendulums, the idea was that two pendulums in a clock, they start moving together, and then this resonance effect comes into place. And so the balance wheels would be then synchronized due to the resonance effect.
Yeah.
And
so that means that your accuracy of the two movements will be basically exactly the same, because the balance wheels are running at exactly the same frequency, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty full on. Like from a concept and then putting it into the movement. Like this stuff is full fucking on. Like it's crazy when you think about it. What he's done, it's crazy.
If I'm to siphon a guess, I'm thinking the crystal for this piece is slightly a bit raised in the dome shape. Yeah. But I do like a very complicated watch like that.
Yeah, it's an amazing piece. Like you said, JCB, when I think about FP Journe, I think about three watches: the Resonance, the one that you mentioned before, the Bleu, and the Chronomètre Bleu, and the Vagabondage, the one that the squared shape with the different cycle. It looks really nice.
Different wheels going around.
Yeah.
The Tourbillon as well, I think, is another Journe watch that's going to be iconic as well. Just the one, the Tourbillon. I just think it's just called I'm not sure what it's called actually, but it's just the Journe Tourbillon. That's another one that's.
Hi, Dodger.
Hey, Dodger. JCB, I gotta say, your choices of the FP Journe is really beautiful. The one thing that I think FP Journe actually has done is that until you look at the movement, then do you really realize the intensity and the magnitude of how deep this whole, the synchronicity of how this resonance, I'll call it the resonance watch, yes, has
the
been
resonance
done
watch,
so well. And I do like
Oh,
a
man.
piece that carries a lot of complication, and the back of it was what sold itself to me already, because I wanted to see how it was like at the back.
Yeah.
Yes,
Full on,
and
man.
that is
Yeah,
full on.
brass.
I would say it deserves the good pricing. I mean, the price that it carries. Yes, okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. It is allowed to have that pricing. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
back down to earth price wise now, and we go for Tudors. I don't know whether you wanted the original or the blue one. Which one do you want?
The original. Yeah, this one here. Yeah, that one you got there. And the reason is actually the gilt color configuration. So the Tudor, so the Black Bay came out, and the Black Bay, obviously based on, like the Snowflake and the Submariner, it's sort of, this is one of those ones where, okay, it's not revolutionary and it's not super innovative, but I feel like it's got enough of its own brand DNA. It's got enough of its own thing in the gilt configuration to be its own thing. And here, I've picked the 58 because with the regular Black Bay, it's just a bit too thick and chunky for most people, I think. The 58 seems to be a bit more popular. In fact, it's a lot more popular with the punters because of the size. It's a lot thinner, and the 39 size is just a lot more wearable for most cats. And here, I mean, I think I just really like the gilt color scheme on this watch, that black and gold. Then you've got the snowflake hand. It's generic enough, but it's also different enough to just make it a really good design, I think. And I think this one out of the Tudor catalog will go the distance. And I feel like the 58, I reckon it'll go the distance. I think it'll be one of those watches that stays popular for a long time.
I had the Black Bay 41, but I had the ETA, the smiley one with the red dial, the 2013 first one, which I think that's like the start of this iconic, let's say, bring back of design of the Submariner of the 50s, the first Submariner. And to be honest, I like the size of this one more, but I like my previous Black Bay because of the bracelet and the smiley of the ETA, the smiley face, like instead of 3 lines of text, you have just a really nice, exactly, like just one, and then you have the Tudor rose, not the Tudor shield, and you have the Tudor rose also on the crown. And even though it was 41, but it was, I have a medium-sized wrist, so it was okay on my wrist. But for the bracelet, if I'm wearing it every day on the bracelet, I would rather have the other bracelet than this fake rivet bracelet, because I hate this fake rivets on the side. Just gets me crazy. I don't like it at all.
I don't mind it, actually. I don't mind it. I had a friend of mine let me the blue one for a couple of days, and I wore it, and I didn't mind it. There you go. That's orange agrees with you there.
Exactly, orange.
Red bezel and the smiley face. Yeah, game changer. Yeah. That my only criticism, as I was saying before, is really just the fucking chunkiness of that watch. Like, I just tried one on at an AD. I didn't spend much time with it. I had it on my wrist, and it's not that it's just something about how the case is done. It's this slab sides, like it feels like you're wearing a fucking skyscraper on your wrist or something. That's what it gave me. And when I had the 58, just the size was just a lot more manageable.
Yeah, and also it's taking retro cues from the 6358 Submariner that James Bond wore, isn't it? Without crown guards. People are really loving that at the moment, and what's Chili saying here? I had to let my Harrods Black Bay go. Could not get a good fit on the bracelet, either too tight or too loose. Interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, but I think I'm not a fan of the faux rivets on this, but I think they'll be remembered for that Tudor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely an accessible watch as well. It's one you can get hold of. You can walk into the AD and you can buy one of these, whereas without having to wait for the Submariner on a waiting list. And I think it'll stay in full production, and it's a very popular watch. Like you say, the size shrunk down from 41mm on the normal Black Bay to is it 39?
39,
yeah.
I don't mind. I actually like 41 as a size. That's actually my ideal size, 41. But with the Black Bay, it's just the thickness and the way that the watch is just a bit chunky. It just didn't work for me. I'm sure it works for a lot of people, and maybe we could, throw in the 41 here as well. Either one, but I think the Black Bay.
Black Bay line, yeah.
Yeah, the Black Bay line, I think, particularly with this gilt, there's something about the way they've done this gilt stuff on the dial. I really dig that. I think it's cool, and nice piece, this one.
I don't know whether the links are hollow, to be honest with you, Mason. I couldn't answer that. You'd have to check out.
I don't think the links are hollow, but the rivets are fake. They're just fake rivets, because the rivet has to be like a screw that is riveted from both sides, and it's just a fake rivet, let's say, construction. So it's not a screw that's going from both sides. It's just a normal link and a fake rivet on top. And that's why I didn't like it.
Fake rivet on the end, yeah. It's solid. It's fully solid bracelet.
Yeah. The real question is, as Abdul and JCB and Thomas mentioned, so the end caps do look very unusual because they do pop out, and I think the real question is, what purpose do they serve being in that current position? Being placed in that. Why?
At all. It's just for the
no purpose.
Correct.
Aesthetics.
Yeah. So if it's strictly for aesthetics, I wouldn't go thinking too much about it. But as far as the brand Tudor itself would go, in terms of, you say, would I buy a Black Bay? Yes, I would, but not this one. The Black Bay I would go for is the GMT SNG. 41mm. Yeah. Some of you would call it, looks like the root beer
Explorer.
No,
it's the two-tone one.
You mean the GMT one, right?
Yes,
the Diet Pepsi. The Diet Pepsi.
Yeah, the Diet Pepsi.
So that's Y2K seal of approval, everyone. If you want to buy a Tudor, get the Diet Pepsi.
Thomas, you're putting words in my mouth. I buy. Okay, guys.
We'll move on. We'll move on to JCB's next pick anyway. This is a Konstantin Chaykin Joker.
Yeah, the Joker. This is one of those ones where at first I didn't get it. I just did not fucking get this thing at all, and I thought, what the hell? Like, what is this guy doing? Is he a Joker? Is he taking the piss? I just didn't get it at all. But I had one on the wrist. I was at a red bar, and there was a guy there that had the Joker, and I put it on, and it just all made sense. Like, it was just the fucking coolest watch, mate. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's wicked, isn't it?
Watch. It's high horology. It's this perfect combination of being fun but high horology at the same time and different. Like, there's nothing else like this stuff out there. So it sort of ticks those boxes for being good design, popular, innovative, and it's just so out there that I feel like it's down the track. Give it 10, 15 years, not even, give it maybe 5, 10 years, and I feel like it'll be on the icon list. That's just sort of my view on it. He keeps bringing out different versions, but I just like, this is a different one too. I think it's just like the Night Joker or something, or
No, I mean you're right. He has brought out
multiple versions. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so
loads
many
of versions. We've got the Minion. We've got the Night Joker.
Yeah,
We've got the
Halloween
Pumpkin. We've got the
just that one you had up, like just that original Joker, or that black one that you had up, Thomas, something like that. So that one's really cool. These pumpkin ones and the Minions one, that they can all go to hell. But the original Joker, I sort of feel like it's even now it's sort of getting into the icon stage already. Like it's so popular. This guy's got waiting lists and all this sort of
You're
stuff.
talking £36,000 for one of these. I mean,
yeah, man.
A lot.
Used to be much cheaper. Much cheaper. Yeah. I remember
they've become super popular.
Exactly.
Chaykin brand has gone.
It's going exponentially up. I met him personally in 2018 at Baselworld, and he had this translator explain to me the design of the watch and everything. I had it on my wrist. I took a picture with it. He's such a nice guy, even though he couldn't speak much English. He had the translator, and I really loved the watch. From that point on, I was mesmerized by how it looks, and it's just something different. When you have a Chaykin on your wrist, you cannot misplace it for another watch, for any other watch. Like it's a Chaykin. It's not like this might be a Journe, it might be something else. It's a Chaykin.
And Nick's point is interesting. I mean, he says he found a homage version for £36 on Amazon. I mean, when a brand is getting homages made by them, you know that it's a bit of an icon. Really.
Yeah.
You know that
one though, isn't it? Like,
there's something about the watch that it's justifiable for it to be have an icon made to it.
This is a super interesting one, like, because like if we think about all the current icons, right? Like, there's no sort of real fun watches. They're all serious. It's Submariner and Speedmaster and fucking Datejust, Navitimer. There's no like Mickey Mouse watch. Is that an icon? I don't know, but
I would say so.
Is it? Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah. But this is like a fun watch that I sort of feel is breaking the seriousness of icons. It's sort of like having a bit of a fun poke at watches, but it's taken on this life of its own. It's become this super popular thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a really interesting watch, the Chaykin, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Now this one's got to be interesting. Tell us about this one, JCB. What are your thoughts on this? I've tried this on, and this was the most comfortable bracelet I've ever tried until I tried a Royal Oak. And
okay, so let's talk about the overseas, right? They've been around for a long time. Generation 1, Generation 2, but I feel like with Generation 3, they got all the design elements right, and it's become this super, super popular watch now. Like, they've nailed that design. It took them 3 generations to get there, but they got there. And now it's got to the point where this is one of the most popular sports watches on the planet at the moment, particularly in the blue dial configuration.
Yeah.
So it's got enough. It's got its own Vacheron DNA. The bezel, the bracelet. It's got its own design language. It's unique enough, but it's also safe enough to be popular for a lot of people. It's just one of those designs that's got just a lot going on. Yeah, the modern Gen 3, the Breakthrough 6, that's your orange. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. Like the Gen 2 was good, but the Gen 3 is fucking unreal. It's such a good watch. Once you've got it on your wrist, it's so thin, it's so light, it's so nice to wear. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch to wear. Amazing. And that blue dial, this picture is doing no justice for the actual depth of the blue dial. When you see it in person, it fucking blows your head off. It's that good.
It does.
It's so
one of the best blue dials going, I think.
Easily.
Yeah,
easily. So I just feel like this watch now, that the Gen 3, what can they do to change it? I don't know. I'm sure they'll tinker with it in some way, but they don't need to tinker with it much from now on. I think they've got the design nailed down, and that's why it made my list. It's just kind of, it's so popular now that I just see it keep that popularity, just keep going, and giving it that icon status. I reckon it's gonna get there.
Yeah.
I hope that VC Vacheron Constantin doesn't change too much about this watch for the next generations, because they like you said, the first generation was like a trial. The second generation they tried out some stuff, and then the third generation is like the refinement of the previous ones made to perfection. And I'm afraid that just they go beyond that and they start tinkering with what's working, taking it out and trying their stuff out. But like you said, it's just such a great watch. I was never a big fan of Vacheron Constantin, to be honest. It doesn't make me feel so much like emotional attachment to the brand or to the watches from the brand. But the Overseas was one of these watches was like, should I start saving up for this piece, or what should I do? Because it's really nice.
For me, the Gen 2 big date chronograph has to be my favorite, I think.
Yeah, that's
really
cool.
Is something amazing, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm a chronograph guy, but the Gen 3 chrono, it's too thick and it's too big. I believe, I don't know exactly, but I think it's 43, whereas the three-hander is a 41, and the chrono is a lot thicker. The cool thing about the three-hander is it's nice and thin. It's just it's like the perfect thickness, actually. It's not too thin, it's not too thick. And you get that when you've got it on your wrist, man, it makes sense. It's so good to wear as a daily. It's hard to beat, I reckon. Really hard to beat. Really fucking good watch.
Yeah. So your last pick, JCB, was this one. And I think, I mean, this is
the Seamaster. I think I had a Lange 1. I had a Lange 1 as well in there, but we'll talk about that one after. The Bond Seamaster. This is a bit of a polarizing one for me because I had one of these watches, the black dial version, and it didn't really gel with me. It wasn't comfortable to wear, the bracelet. But I think the Bond Seamaster line sort of has, like, from the start, like the original 1990s Bond watch, and coming through to this one, sort of feel like it's getting, it's pretty popular. It's becoming a thing now. I sort of feel like this sort of Seamaster Professional. I think they still need to make. If they fix the bracelet, then it'll become more popular, and therefore
I agree.
It'll become an icon. Yeah, it's just the bracelet that lets it down.
Yeah, same for me. If they fix that bracelet, I mean, a lot of people complain about the helium escape valve and call it the wart and stuff.
The what?
I hate this helium escape valve, to be honest.
That doesn't trouble me as much as the bracelet. For me, that 5-part bracelet is just stinks. If they
they need to fix
some of the form of bracelet. I've heard it's very comfortable. I believe it's very comfortable. The bracelet, extremely comfortable. But
look, I must have got a bad one. I must have got one that slipped through QC or something, because you know when Ocean brought out that video about the Speedy, and he said that the Speedy bracelet was really sharp. That's what I had with my Seamaster. It was fucking sharp. Like, it was like it wasn't finished properly.
Really?
Yeah, man. I flipped it after a few months. Like I was like, I can't fucking wear the watch. So I put it down to, I must have got a bad one. I must have got a dud. But it was really bad. It was really like to the point of like where I'm going like seriously, like my watches that cost $800 feel better than this watch. You know what I mean? So yeah, look, that was why the bracelet's just not cool, but the watch head itself I think is pretty cool, and I sort of feel like the original Bond watch is probably more the icon than this one for some reason. I don't know why, but like more people tend to like that one, the original one than this one.
I like this one a lot, but the helium escape valve just makes me can't wear it. I can't. It just feels somehow it's wrong. Like I tried it on, and I'm like looking, and I'm like, what? Where am I going to use a helium escape valve? Right? Where?
Yeah.
Like even the bracelet, I could wear it on a rubber strap. Like if I have this watch, I would put it on a red rubber strap and be so happy with it. But just this helium escape valve, I cannot. It's something.
Yeah. So I had a 2254.
Great to see you. Thanks a lot.
The previous generation of this watch, the helium escape valve was lower profile. It was thinner, and it wasn't conical shape. It was more, just sort of the shape of the crown. If that makes sense. It was more of a cylinder as opposed to being like a conical shape. And it was fine. It actually looked kind of cool, to be honest. So they've made it more pronounced than on this watch. But still, when you're wearing it, you don't really notice it too much. It's more in the photos, I think, that it sticks out a bit more. So for me, I don't mind the helium escape valve. You sort of can deal with it, and it's okay. But I think if the Seamaster Professional had a few little tweaks to it, it would be a really cool watch. They just need to just iron out a few of the bugs. Maybe get rid of the helium escape valve for people like Abdul, and then it would be it would probably elevate it more into that icon status. Probably got a few question marks on it at the moment. Yes, this is what I had.
We had a couple of honourable mentions you wanted to just drop in, JTB.
This is much better.
This is probably an honourable mention. This one. This is the 2254. I reckon if Omega, if they reissued this watch with this will be my changes to this watch. Okay, so put applied indices. At the moment, there's a painted indices. So when you've got painted indices, it makes the watch feel a bit cheap. So put some nice applied indices like the Planet Ocean. So take those indices off the Planet Ocean and put it on here. And the other thing is with the bezel font, see how the numbers are really big and thick? Just trim them down a little bit, like maybe like what the Planet Ocean is. Just make the numbers on the bezel a little bit smaller, and I reckon you would have pretty much close to a perfect watch. If Omega, if you're listening, I know you're not, because not many people watch this show, but reissue the 2254 and you'll have a fucking winner on your hands. That watch is only 11.5 millimeters thick. Okay, it wears like a dream. 41.5 mil. And so here the Planet Ocean. Look at this watch. Look at the design of this watch, man. So good. This is a great dive watch. I think this is the original, the 2500 caliber Planet Ocean, and this one was around I'm going to say 14.5 mil thick, which is pretty thick. But it's not unreasonably thick. You can still walk around with a 14.5 mil watch, and it's okay. So this is the first generation Planet Ocean. When they moved to the next generation, which was the caliber 8500, the watch went to like 16 mil thick, and it's always stayed really thick. It's never come back down. So again, Omega, if you're listening, you can make a few tweaks to the Planet Ocean line, bring it back to more what this was. and you'll have a good piece, I reckon. Yeah, so another honourable mention.
Yeah, just a couple more honourable mentions just before we wind up.
Bring up a Lange 1, Thomas. That's I reckon the Lange 1, if you can.
Yeah, that's an iconic watch.
I'll just have to call that up. Just
yeah, cool.
bear with me. So this is another one, the Zenith Rainbow Chrono Flyback. You thought was an honourable mention?
Yeah, it's an honourable mention. It's not in production anymore, but it was around for a little while. Just an honourable mention for the real Zenith geeks and the real chronograph geeks. This one's sort of a pretty cool piece, I reckon. Just super different. It's got some colour going on. Flyback chronograph. Yeah, just a cool piece, I think. Yeah, icon. Yeah, maybe not. Probably not, actually.
Probably not. So get rid of that. Another honourable mention was the. Let's just have a look. The Breitling Aerospace. You thought?
Yeah, I think it's an honourable mention. I think the aerospace line, again, this is sort of revolutionary in terms when it first came out back in the, I'm going to say, early 90s or whatever. You know, it's a super quartz movement and just a really cool tool watch from Breitling. I think, yeah, it's sort of this is the Aerospace Evo, the current version. It's very similar to the original version, so they haven't really tweaked the design too much. So I feel like they'll probably keep that design language going through into the future. And you know, it's got that Ana Digi, you know, look, which is sort of pretty cool, tool watch look. So in that genre of being a tool watch with the Ana Digi, that Ana Digi layout, I feel like this is probably going to be the iconic piece in that particular genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Omega has another one also that has this Ana Digi display. I would put them both like the two watches if you want to have a rugged day-to-day adventure watch that you know it won't give up on you when you're on top of let's say the Himalayas or a Kilimanjaro or something like that. You will have this watch and you will be 100% sure that it will work in all conditions.
Did you want me to call up the 5960 as an honorable mention, Abdul?
Yeah, we could mention it, and then we can maybe also go with the Lange one, because I think Lange one is one of the watches that put a Lange and Söhne and on the map also. This watch for me is an honorable mention for one thing. It has both things that make a Patek watch special, the complications. You have a chronograph complication and you have a calendar complication in both on one watch, but with a different, let's say, conception of how you see them. So you have the concentric chronograph at the 6 o'clock, and you have aperture dial for the date and the day and month. So you have an annual calendar, you have a chronograph, and it's just, for me, this is just such a balanced watch, such a symmetrical watch. You have the upper part for the annual calendar, the lower part for the chronograph. It's not busy. It's just, for me, this is my favorite Patek of all time. This is for me the one to get. If when I'm able to afford such a watch, I will definitely be able to get this one, because this for me is my favorite Patek watch.
Yeah, man, I love man. That's a grail watch for me. Not that particular one. I like the 5960. 5960p, the platinum version, just on the black dial with a leather strap.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And that would be just perfect everyday watch. Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one, you know what, Thomas, Abdul and Y2K, when I was thinking about current watches that are going to be icons, this was actually the first thing that popped into my head, because of all the things that I was talking about earlier, which is about having a unique design, having a great design, having a different design, and
as Jonathan Quayle Higgins rightly said, the Lange 1.
Lange 1,
yeah, not the Lange 1. Lange 1.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, they just nailed it, man. They nailed it. This was the watch that brought them back onto the map back in 1994, I believe it was.
Yep, exactly.
And I mean, what a design! What a design, man! Like, who came up with this stuff? There's a lot of our friend ID guy has done a video where he looks at the symmetry and all of the geometry that's going on with the dial. If you look at the points of where the pinions are, they all line up in a line. You know, the date, the middle of the date, and the power reserve and the seconds, they all line up. There's all this symmetry going on, so that this watch actually, it sort of looks simple, but there's a lot of complicated mathematics and geometry going on, which makes it in your head look like when you look at it, it looks like a really pleasing design because of all of these little symmetrical things that are happening. So, the fact that they put so much work into the design,
it's isn't it?
It's amazing.
Really gorgeous.
Amazing. Yeah.
That big date and it just
date, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Lange 1 is actually the signature. Yeah, one of the signature pieces for Lange.
Yes.
Sorry, Abdul.
Oh yeah.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like, especially in Germany, when you go and you have like meetings with, let's say, upper management, most of them are wearing Langes. Most of them, and most of them are Lange 1. They're just so beautiful, so subdued, so classy that when you see them on the wrist, you just want to talk to this guy and like, hey, you have a really good taste of watches, and awesome that you have this watch. And with the big date, especially with the big date, you geared towards people who wear glasses, or let's say older gentlemen who will, with just a glance, putting their hands on the table, would know the date, would know the time, would know how much power reserve I have, and it's just a perfect design, I think.
Yeah, absolutely
beautiful. What do you think, Thomas?
I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's unique design. I think it's just great. Yeah. Oh, JJ saying thanks everyone. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks. You too.
Yeah. Thanks, JJ. Take good care.
And I think for this one, I think Glashütte Original make the Panomatic, which is quite similar to the design of the Lange 1. So you get this iconic status from people copying you, even though Glashütte is just next door from Lange, but they still looked, okay, what could we do from our big brother Lange that the masses could buy? Because under 10 grand, you can get a Glashütte Original with every complication in mind. And Lange 1 now is pretty high up the price list.
Yeah, so on that note, JJ, we'd like to wind up the show, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone who joined us, Abdul, JCB, Y2K, and if you enjoyed the show, please give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, it's an invitation to subscribe, and please leave us a comment down below, and if you want to make any suggestions for any future shows, please do, and yeah, we'll try our best to do something about it. And but it's been great having you all in chat, as always. Lovely to see you all on a Saturday. See what you're doing on the weekend, and we love joining you. And so,
just to interrupt Thomas, for our Asian viewers, you know what the oranges mean. So,
no, tell us.
New Year to you guys, and don't forget, for those of you who are married, you need to give the red packet with the cash to the kids.
Right.
But make sure that the kids say a lovely Lunar New Year blessings with two
Happy Lunar New Year. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you, Mason One. Yeah, it's been a great stream. We've had some great choices from Abdul and from JCB, and they really enjoyed talking about the topic. So,
yeah, good one, guys. Nice
we'll bid you farewell, and take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time in a fortnight.
See you guys.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.